Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'm going to be doing my fall reading recommendations. So for when I think of fall reads, I think of ones that are either suspenseful, spooky, or just kind of atmospheric. So I have 5 books here that totally remind me of fall, and they're the perfect book to read when it's kind of dark and gloomy and chilly outside, the leaves are changing, and with a nice cup of tea. So without further ado, let's get started. This is a book that I actually read 2 autumns ago, and it is The Bone Garden by Tess, Gerritsen, and this book is amazing. So it's about this woman who moves into this 150-year-old house, and she discovers when she's doing some gardening work there's this skeleton that's buried there, and so this kind of leads to investigation, and they find out that this body is from the 1830s, and so she's trying to uncover whose bodies this is. And so this kind of flashes back to Boston in 1830, where we follow Rose, who kind of gets entangled with this other medical student and some murders that are taking place that have some connection to do with the body that was found. So this book was so suspenseful. I could picture Boston during this time in the 1830s, where it was just foggy and spooky, and there's this like murderer taking place, like murderer running around, and it's just really spooky. And some of the scenes in here were so scary. I remember I was at school reading this in my apartment, and I'm like by myself, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is terrifying. So this one was just a lot of fun, and Tess Gerritsen is one of my favorite authors, so I highly recommend you check this one out if you're looking for like a nice spooky. This would be a perfect Halloween read. It has a historical fiction kind of mystery aspect to it, so I think this one would be a really unique read. So next I have Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, and this is actually my favorite Gillian Flynn novel. Of course, I really like Gone Girl and Sharp Objects, but this one is my favorite. So it's about this woman who was the lone survivor of this massacre that took place of her family, and her brother was the one that was put into jail for it, and she testified saying that it was her brother that murdered her family. And so kind of flash forward, I want to say like 20-30 years later, she's approached by this man who doesn't think that her brother was the one that was responsible for their deaths. And so as she's trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, we kind of get flashback scenes leading up to the massacre, and this one was so spooky. This one is like, I think, as I said, this one was my favorite. It's really dark and twisted, and I think it's kind of best to go into this not knowing too much, because there is a lot of stuff to it, and it's like really creepy. There's some really dark things in here, but it was just, if you're into dark and twisty things, I think this is perfect for you, and it's the perfect book to read during fall. So this is kind of leaning towards the more atmospheric ones, and this is The Forgotten Garden by Morton. I read this last summer, and it was truly amazing. So it's about this girl named Nell who discovers that the parents that she's known and loved all her life are not her biological parents. Rather, she was found on a dock from this boat that came from England, and so she kind of was adopted into this family, and that kind of turns her whole world upside down. So when Nell passes away when she's in her 90s, her granddaughter finds out about this. So she's trying to piece together her grandmother's kind of forgotten history, and so we kind of get, again, another dual storyline in the early 1900s following Eliza, who has some connection to this story, but and I think it's best not knowing too much, again, not knowing too much about this one, but this was a very atmospheric read, and it takes place on the coast of England, and so I just see it as like the dark sky with like the ocean crashing up against the rocks, and like, so that's how I totally picture it. And I think this is like a perfect book to read when you're cuddled up on the couch with a nice cup of tea. And this book is just truly beautiful, and it touched me in a lot of ways, and it's quite a big book actually. So it's just over 500 pages, and I flew through it, and it was just really amazing. So this was a murder series that I discovered last summer, and I fell in love with it, and it is the Sydney Parnell series by Barbara Nickless, the first one being Blood on the Tracks. And so this one's like a murder mystery series, but what's unique about this is that the main protagonist is a former marine, and she has a canine sidekick, which is really neat. And so she is like part of, like, I don't even know like the actual position is, but she works for the railroads and kind of does investigations for them there, and it's just really, really creepy. And yeah, it's like so suspenseful. And like, again, with these books, I like not knowing too much about the plot, but take my word for it, this book was amazing. The second one was even better, so I can't wait for the third one to come out in March of next year. But yeah, it's best to go into this not knowing too much, and it will honestly like leave you speechless. That's how good it was. And so finally, this is another murder mystery series, and it is the Robert Galbraith Cormoran Strike series, which is J.K. Rowling's kind of pseudonym. And this is the third book in the series, which is my favorite, which is Career of Evil. And you could tell J.K. Rowling was, the first two books were good, but this one was amazing, and it ended on a cliffhanger. And this was published, I want to say, 2015, 2016, so it's been a few years, and there's no word yet on when the next one's coming out, so I can't wait until that day comes. But holy smokes, you guys, like this one, like you could tell she was leading up to this one, and it was truly suspenseful. They're really dark and twisted, and I didn't know when I read the first book that J.K. Rowling was the author, and when I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, like this, the author of Harry Potter wrote this, because it's very dark and twisted, and it is a very adult book. Just be aware of that. But they're totally, like, I just see myself in London, and like when it's cold and rainy, and there's these murder investigations. And so yeah, I love this series, and I wish people talked more about it on BookTube, because it's actually really, really good. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite fall reads are. And yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.